So I finished The Well of Ascension, and I think I preferred it to Mistborn. I think that it was much more well-rounded, and I think mainly that's because of Kelsier not being in it. Kelsier was fantastic, but he definitely overshadowed pretty much everybody else who was in the book. With this book, we managed to get ZANE's perspective, we got Strauss' perspective, and a whole load of other ones, including Sazed, a lot more of Sazed as well. And what this meant is that we got to explore different sides of conflicts and also just completely different perspectives. Also, meaning that I felt like I was deeper into the book, and we got to flesh out the other characters that were part of his old crew, because they actually got page time with a lack of Kelsier being there. But of course, let's talk about specifics. So the Well of Ascension itself, wow, it was absolutely incredible. Whatever power that was resting in there, whatever god that was resting in there, clearly has a huge amount of influence, because even though they were trapped, they were able to influence everything around them. They were able to influence what would seem like memories, the things that were in the Terris's minds. So things had been held there. They were able to influence and change them. Written words. They were also able to influence like folklore. There was so much they were able to influence, including people, and that's scary, but it also raises some more questions. Now, was it the god or power that was in the Well of Ascension that actually caused all of those changes to try and release itself, or was something else acting on its behalf to try and release it? So also, I would guess that this power was influencing ZANE, the voice inside of his head, the god, and also Vin's mother. And what that means was that whether that was the power itself or whether it was some other force trying to help the power / god be released, that's really scary, because it's so influential in that world that it's able to enter certain people's minds and speak with them. And that would definitely suggest that it was changing a lot more than just the prophecies. It was literally moving people like a chessboard around to try and get somebody, a champion, in this case, Vin, to be just close enough to a hero, just to tick enough boxes that it could then change the prophecies and change the memories around it to release itself. And I think it was such a cool plot line. And did I guess what was going to happen? Not much before the reveal, not much before. I'm sure a lot of people got it way before I did with the clues that were available, but I think I managed to get it. I don't even remember exactly when, but definitely before, way before she was, before the reveal with Says that she was to not let go of the power. I felt like maybe a chapter or two before, but so well written. All the clues were there, and yet I didn't see them, which is the sign of like an amazing book. And I think that's part of the reason why I enjoyed it more than Mistborn, is because it just felt like I had a lot more time to focus on this overall plot, to worry about it, to try and put the clues together, rather than Vin just slowly building her powers and us having to learn that start bit. Not that I didn't enjoy that start bit where she develops her powers and builds herself into the story, but able to jump into it with her almost as a fully formed character. Obviously, she develops a lot in this book as well, but to be able to focus a lot more on the plot lines, on the politics, on the siege, on the Well of Ascension, on the studying and the relationships between characters, on the Colossus, on all of that, just made it a lot more of an intriguing read, rather than vast sections where it was like Vin training, Vin's relationship with Kelsier, etc. as well. So what happens in the next book? I would say, based on how worried the mist-like figure, which I assume is the counterbalance, maybe not the counterbalance, but I would assume is definitely an enemy of this force, based on how badly it didn't want it to be released and what lengths it went to try and stop it from being released, and what lengths Rashek went to and what lengths Quan went to, and over history how much effort has been put into stopping this thing from being released, I would guess it's going to wreak a lot of havoc. And we're also going to be having to try and find a way to either recapture it or destroy it or nullify its effects in some way, and I would guess everything is focused around that. And most likely there's going to be a ton of secrets that will be blocking us from finding an obvious answer to that until right near the very end. You know, that would be classic Sanderson. So that's what I guess is going to happen. But how? How are we going to do it? Make some predictions. Don't be scared. So I think the key is finding out how this third type of magic works, because Feruchemy seems to be exclusive to the Terris. I haven't seen any evidence to say that it's not. Allomancy seems to come, now that Elend has it, which is pretty cool, be a gift from the mist-like creatures, because obviously Allomancy came into Vin through the mists one time, but also it was given by that small, it was kind of described as like a grayish, marvelous kind of thing, which could then maybe expand into the mist. But the mist-like figure, that seems to control that. So what the powers that this other godlike force that just released, we need to understand that. I don't understand that. It's clearly tied to the Inquisitors, because ZANE could hear the voice and he had a hole in his back. Marsh could obviously hear the voice because he kept on saying, I don't know why I have to stop you, I'm just being told, you know, and that's clearly the voice in his head as well. So this other magic system is clearly tied to that force, and if we understand that magic system, then we can have a much better understanding of that force, and that will most likely come from the Inquisitors. Like, we need to find how Inquisitors are made, and that will answer a lot of questions. I think the Mist figure is going to be key. We need that figure to communicate and really to weaponize and mobilize to be able to stand a chance. It clearly has a good understanding, a deeper understanding, or even just a longer understanding of what this force is. So there's a lot of moving parts, but that third type of magic is going to be so key to finding the answer. And even more important is going to be Vin's earring. Now, I mentioned even at the very start of Mistborn, when it kept on being brought up, that this earring was going to be important. Plus, when she's in the pool, when the power's kind of like enveloping her, her earring was burning hot, and then she had to let go of it. And that says something, like maybe some of this god's power is like left in the earring. Maybe the final part, it needs to be complete, is left inside of there. Maybe some of his power can be accessed if she puts it on, because then it would be inside of her. Maybe it imbued the metal with something she could burn, potentially. I don't know. I just know the earring is going to be absolutely vital. My guess is that we need somebody who can use all three. So we have a couple of powerful Allomancers. We have Elend now, and we also have Vin. My guess would still be Vin, because she needs to atone for her mistake. She's going to be feeling pretty rotten about what happened, even though how was she to know? You know, she was completely bamboozled and tricked, but still her fault, annoyingly. So she already has Allomancy. Can the Terris gift Feruchemy? I don't know, but there's also a ton of stuff that I don't know about the Terris. So maybe, and it would appear that Sazed is going to be the leader of the Terris, because they thought it was going to be Tyndall, but Tyndall's dead. So yeah, it's got to be Sazed now, because the Inquisitors attacked the Terris homeland. Why did they attack the Terris homeland? I don't know, but they must have been told by that god force to do it. Why did the god force want the Terris defeated? Because maybe they can give Feruchemy, which would give someone a better chance of beating the force. That's my guess in that direction. And then finally, how would Vin get this other power? Well, they can make Inquisitors, so why don't we just drive a spike into Vin, and then maybe she can have all three powers. That's a bit of a wild guess. I highly doubt it, but someone with all three would be pretty deadly, right? Because the Lord Ruler, maybe the Lord Ruler did have all three, and we just didn't realize. But if the Lord Ruler only had two, and he was that powerful, Vin with three would just be off the chart, and maybe she would be able to combat that force and reverse what needs to be reversed. But there's so many questions. What was the Lord Ruler doing to combat that force on a daily basis? It sounded like he was saying. How are we going to return the world to being green and beautiful? So that means getting rid of the mists, getting rid of the ash, getting rid of everything. What on earth is happening with all the atium? Where is the atium? This is long standing. I feel like that is going to be the final reveal. And I also still feel like Duralumin burnt with atium is going to be the answer to something, because we've conveniently avoided that happening. Maybe, and the Lord Ruler must have been burning the atium. He must have been burning the atium to combat something, because where else would the atium be? Like if there's just like a huge amount of it somewhere sitting, that's kind of a boring answer because it didn't do anything. He wasn't using it. There's no special use for it. I think Duralumin, Burn with Atium has to be an answer to something. I also think that with there being no need for that force to twist the Terris prophecies and twist the stories anymore, if he just lets go of that power, which he might not do, maybe he'll just twist the prophecies to make it seem like that force always needed to be released and that is the god. Like that would be an interesting way to use his powers if he's got such incredible powers already. But maybe he just drops that. He doesn't need that illusion anymore. And maybe we get some answers from that. Maybe we look back on all the texts that were written and changed 1,000 times by this power, just go back to normal and we see what was originally put, and maybe there's some truth to it about this power and the mists and a lot more. Maybe the ancient people who initially started writing these records actually knew something about how all this works. Maybe there's a balance to it, maybe something along those lines. So I just need more answers to be able to make these guesses. Plus, in this book, we get a ton of death and despair, and I think it was really well done. Like, Brandon Sanderson didn't pull any punches. Some seriously important characters did die on both sides. I don't think there was any unnecessary deaths for shock and awe. I was a massive fan of the balance of death and despair, risk and prices paid, plus rewards. It was all fairly mixed in there, and it was very enjoyable and balanced. And there were some other things I absolutely loved as well. Watching Sazed fight, incredible. If the Terris had a lot of prep time, they would be such a formidable army. Plus, we got Sazed and Tindbal's love. And this love is very different to something that we normally get in fantasy. Normally in fantasy, you get Elend and Vin's love, where it's raw, young, awkward, a little bit frustrating to read. And by a little bit, I mean like very frustrating to read. Although theirs isn't the most frustrating. And frustrating isn't a bad thing. I mean, two young people trying to be in a relationship and fall in love can be frustrating. We've all been there. When you're young, it's so hard to do because you don't understand yourself or your feelings or comfortable with it. So it's like so difficult to make happen. So it's probably quite realistic, but still frustrating to read as an adult. So that was incredible. Their love was more, the ego was kind of removed from it. They both knew a lot about who they were, and it just made it a very enjoyable love to read. And I had a good time reading it. One of my favorite in fantasy, to be fair, even though it was short and even though it really didn't, and nothing really became of it, it was good. It was very sweet. Plus, we also got Elend going from a very idealistic and whiny princeling to king to deposed king. We now have somebody who is sure of themselves, is probably the best leader of people in the entirety of the characters that we have, and is now about to be bestowed the power of allomancy. And if he can get anywhere near Vin's proficiency, I would say his leadership skills are probably many notches above Vin's. So maybe we see someone else kind of take the Hero of Ages banner, and that banner really should be slung into the dirt, you know, because it was a fraud. It was a lie marauding as a prophecy. But they still need a Hero of Ages, right? They need somebody to come and put it right and do on paper what the prophecy says to do, which is save the world. So who will it be? Will it be Vin? Will it be Elend? I think it'll be Vin, obviously, because we spent so much time building her up, but I wouldn't be surprised if Elend becomes just as big a hero, if he isn't already. But my favorite part about this book was ZANE and Straff's perspectives. I absolutely loved their perspectives. I think it was so fun. It was so fun to see the other side of the coin, and not only see their strange relationship between them with the poisonings, or what Straff thought was the poisonings, but also just to see how they thought about things from like a much more experienced leader, like somebody who has spent a lot of time under the Lord Ruler's lead. And it tells, like, Straff really has much better ideas, and if there wasn't all of this allomancy involved, he would kind of steamroll this entire book just because of his understanding of politicking and war, etc. So it was really fun to see into their perspectives. And ZANE was so unhinged, by no fault of his own, it would seem, by this other type of magic that allows this godlike creature into his head. But it was fun to read his sections and his chapters. And not only was he unhinged, but he was actually incredibly smart. I don't know if this godlike figure was giving him ideas and pushing him to do certain things. And it wouldn't surprise me because it's clearly shown like an omnipotent ability to play chess, but on a world scale, to push its own agenda and get what it wants. But if not, then ZANE is a very intelligent character. And that's it really. My predictions for the next book is difficult to make because I have no idea how we go about this power, but I do know that it's going to be very much shrouded in trying to understand what this power is, and then we can go from how to battle it from there. But my question for you this time around is, which book did you prefer? Did you prefer The Well of Ascension or did you prefer Mistborn? I'm going to have a guess, and I think most people preferred Mistborn. I preferred The Well of Ascension for the reasons I listed, but who knows, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you agree with me. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I've got a ton like it on my channel. And join me in the next one where I'm going to be reading the first part of The Hero of Ages and trying to guess what happens in the rest of the book. Have a great day.